Wait. Okay.
Okay, welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting, February 20, 2024. I would like to excuse Councilwoman Rosalba Dominguez. I'd like to welcome all council members and Jennifer and Patty and the mayor. Welcome. You look very fresh, relaxed. Okay, our first agenda item is a approval of the minutes of January 16th, 2024. Could we have?
Do you want to take them together?
We only have one, January 16th, 2024. It's okay, it's okay.
I'll make it. I'll motion to approve the committee of the whole minutes for January 16th, 2024.
Can we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, can we all say aye?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, so now we're on to our wonderful fire department who knows how to throw a wonderful party and games and food and wonderful evening. Thank you, fire department. Joey Miniman will be presenting.
We'll see if I'm wonderful at crashing the IT system too. May.
Pam, will you let me say something real quick?
Sure, go right ahead.
I was gonna say this in my report, but they're not gonna be here, they're not gonna stay.
Right.
But
Oh,
I just wanna tell you how impressive Joey and his team were with that fire. So that was the day before I left. The night, and Cindy and I went over. I didn't even, as I'm going through, I'm going, am I allowed here? They go, you're not there, you can come in. So anyway, so I went and watched them in action, and it was amazing. Joey, it was funny, not funny, but interesting to watch you in that mode, because I've never seen you in that mode. And you just had everything and all your.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
It was great. He was in the zone, and all of you. It was amazing watching you, and I've never seen, it was all the departments. I mean, you know, I said, what's power here? Well, they gotta get the power off and they gotta do this. And I watched that for a couple hours and it was pretty impressive watching you guys. So I just wanna give a big shout out to everyone, especially you guys for all what you do.
Thank you guys. Good work.
Well, thanks, Mayor.
Well,
what a lovely picture.
Yeah, it is.
What an awesome group.
So this picture was actually taken just on Friday night at our appreciation dinner. And so we had 51, I think, full-time employees in that picture as I counted them up. And so we were missing about, I think, 13 overall employees, but we had a great turnout. And we haven't had a picture like this since 2001 with this many of our employees in it because it's so hard to get everybody together. And so we took the opportunity, and then, our photographer, which was my neighbor, I snagged her, and she AI'd like there were some tables. It turned out awesome. We're so happy to have it. So, but on that note, thanks for letting us come and present. This is kind of a fun time for me. I don't stress out or anything about this. I really enjoy talking about the fire department, as you guys know. So as I cruise through this, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. If something doesn't make sense, or my worst trait is if I say an acronym that you don't understand, please just stop and say, okay, good, please. I'm trying to rid them of all of my mind and just speak in normal verbiage, but anyhow, it's a struggle. So 1906 is officially our start year, which is interesting because Brooke had sent me a 100-year detail that would have been this year, I think, or next year. But that goes into the modernization, as far as I could tell, of the fire department. In 1906, the Fraternal Order, which was organized by the city, was actually the start of it. If you cruise through there, in 74, there was a big, change. The EMS was designated. Fire departments have not always done EMS. And in 74, the DOT came out, and then that's when you saw like Hearst ambulances that were being donated to the fire department. So if you kind of forward in the history, volunteers we started up and moved away from. I should say volunteers were there to that point, but the fire department started getting busier, and so they went full time in 1982, and then by 98. They had moved away from the part-time fire department that we had as far as supplementing the full-timers and went to all full-timers. In 2000, we started our paramedic service, which was awesome for the city in my eyes. It really gave you as a city the physical ability to kind of control your destiny as far as the treatment level that you got. You received your own medical director for the paramedic treatment, and you could kind of alter how that looked for you. In 2008 is when we started our ambulances. We relocated stations, and in 2009 we started our ambulances. And then in 2012, we went from a minimum staffing of 2 ambulances in the city to 3 ambulances in the city. And I'll roll through a little bit of this during the presentation. So this may be confusing a little bit up front because there's a lot of stuff in that history timeline. As we talk about what we actually do today in the fire department, we take care of obviously fire suppression. We also are an all hazards mitigation team, such as we do ice water rescue, we do swift water rescue, we go out on hazmat. If there's a gas leak, we take care of the gas leak. We may not physically stop the gas leak, depending upon what style of gas leak it is, but we at least mitigate it and then isolate that emergency. And we work tandem with our police department to do a lot of these functions. Sometimes we joke around that they put out our fires with their extinguishers in their cars, and we tackle their bad guys. No, we don't do that. Anyhow, I'm not for sure what we do with them. They do a great job working with us. So, fire prevention is a necessary part, and it's really developed. It's probably our largest development in the fire service over the last 20 years because it went from very little code that was fire code oriented to a whole lot of code that's made our buildings safer over time and stuff. And it's really reduced the amount of actual fires that we've had that we'll talk about. Community risk reduction program, that's something we're starting up. Our EMS is emergency medical system. And then our emergency management system is the citywide that I'll talk about. So let's hit on fire suppression. We have 4 stations in Murray, but really we have 3 active stations. The one that's up on the east side on Vine Street and 9th East. We have the one that's on 59th South and 384 West. 484 West, 484 West and 5900 South, and then the one right next to us here. The one that is not housed is Station 84, which is the one that's behind Cottonwood High School. All the others have a minimum of 3 people on an engine and then 2 people on an ambulance. What that does is when we respond out on medical calls or a fire call, it gets you a 5-person crew, but it does 2 different jobs on that. A lot of people wonder, why do we have a fire engine going to our house when it's just grandma that took a fall down? And that's a great question, and I love it when people ask that. How many people does it take to screw in a light bulb? 1 to actually do it, 3 to supervise or whatever. It's a little bit like that in the EMS world and the fire world, but we can never leave a patient alone. So if we only had 2 on an ambulance, they would have to go in, start treating the patient, but they wouldn't have their stretcher, their gear, or anything else. Then they would have to leave their patient, go out, get their equipment, come back in, and it wouldn't be efficient. If you go back 20 years ago, I was volunteering living down in Payson on their ambulance, and I would roll out on calls with just 2 people in the daytime because we couldn't get volunteers to come in. In fact, I ran a cardiac arrest one time with just 2 of us, and it gets really, really thin. That's when you grab citizens to come with you and police officers to come in the back of the ambulance. I would never suggest we kind of go backwards to that role for it. I always call our machine as, we run a Ferrari, but we run it on a Chevy budget type of thing with the way that we operate. And the reason that I say that is we have a 5-person, a 5-handed fire crew there. By NFPA, we always want at least 4 people assigned to an engine. And the way that works is you have 1 officer that's in charge, and then you have an engineer that's on the pump panel pulling all the levers, and you have 2 people going in. And that's minimum. But with the ambulance system, being that we train them as firefighters, we actually have a 3-person entry team with that engineer still on the pump panel, and then the captain still in charge to go start that initial entry. And that provides us a lot of opportunity to limit that fire. And I won't get into the details too much. Between those 3 stations, you have 2 fire engines, and that is like a pumper that pumps the water to fires. And then you have one with a big giant ladder up top that's 105 feet long, and it has a bucket on it, the current one that we have. And that's used for things such as the fire that we had last week on Vine Street. And you notice we put ladder aerial trucks on 3 different sides and then push down onto the fire rather than putting people into the fire. That structure, we could never physically survive in there. There's no gear that's safe enough to protect us in those environments. If there were people inside that fire, we would have strategically went into different points and did rescue in that operation, but not just like what we do on a normal fire where we're searching, going through a complete structure. So we do have specialty apparatus such as wildland fire trucks, and that works and helps us along the parkway. Here's kind of a crazy note. We actually have 2 right now, or you could say we have 3 because we have a 1989, but we're changing over. So you might ask, why do you have 3 wildland trucks in the city of Murray? Because there's really only the Jordan Parkway. I mean, come on, isn't that a little bit extravagant? And the answer is we actually make money off of them, is the reason we built up that program. When we send our units out, like we did in Idaho and California this last year, we can turn a little bit of profit, but we don't want to leave the city stranded without their wildland. So long as we see that ability to turn those apparatus in money, then it works out to be a positive thing for the city. Last year we made somewhere in our operations and our CIP, it's around $40,000 that went back into Murray off of that. That's after we pay employees,
That's what I was wondering, after maintenance and
after
all
the
that.
vehicle purchase even.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
It's great. And that's just a typical year if we can go out. The problem with that, as I've talked with Brenda, is it isn't always a guarantee. However, with the new system that we're seeing that the state set up, we are seeing a little bit more of a possibility of just a constant revenue of that base amount that we collected last year. So if we can, we'll continue forward with that. With the support of the mayor. We always approach the mayor before we send anybody out and make sure that he's comfortable with our staffing as well as I'm comfortable with the staffing to make sure we're not leaving the city stranded. So we don't just leave it up to a department head to randomly send people out. This is utilizing our budget here as a city to utilize that. And so that's an important aspect that we feel. So, any questions on that?
How many people do you usually send out to?
Depending upon the fire, typically it's 3 or 4 on a wildland. You could send out an ambulance, which we have, which is just 2 people, or we can send out a single resource, and that single resource is just 1. And that would be like a line medic. So every wildland fire has a line medic on it. So
Joey, how many firefighters were at the Vine Street fire?
it was a 2-alarm fire. If you guys know off the top of your head, just reach out and throw it out to me since you guys have done the math. But my guess is there was around 40 firefighters and around 9 pieces of equipment there. Not all of them were utilized at the same time or utilized necessarily on the fire, but we cycle crews in on a defensive fire like that. You'll have roughly about 20 to 25 firefighters working actively on it, and then we'll cycle those in at, say, a half-hour base or an hour base. Not all of them are on air packs at the time, so that's less fatiguing than just sitting on a hose spraying back and forth. It's defensive fires like that. They're 10 minutes of hard work, followed by 30 minutes of absolute boredom, because the roof does a really good job as it collapses, the fire stays below it. It's not until it burns up through it, you can't get water down in there. So it's a rough fire, and that's why it takes so long to put out those.
I also heard that somebody stayed there all night.
Yeah, we were actually there for a period of, all night. We had 8 people. Actually, no, 10 people, because we had 2 on watch to control the scene, and then 8 firefighters that were working the 2 different apparatus there, plus actually 3 chiefs. So how many? I just lost track of my math there.
8,
Yeah, 8, 3,
12.
2. Yeah, 13.
13.
Yeah, we're there all night long. So, and there were only 8 replacements, and the other folks that were on, they were actually there from the beginning of the fire clear through, and then, yeah, Travis was one of them that stayed the night. So I'll say thank you for Travis. He gave us a couple hours of sleep, and then we came and relieved him, and then they came back and relieved us later. So that's how we cycle on fires on that, is we'll cycle through employees and so forth.
What was our response time on that fire? How quickly did we get there?
To get there would have been about 3 minutes, because I was there at 5 minutes into it, and they beat me by a couple of minutes. So,
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And then on top of it, you've got Craig's department that's there securing the area and not letting people through. So there are a lot of people.
yeah. So, and I won't even stop there. We brought out Public Works. They did a fantastic job of,
And they were there for water, power, what?
yes,
Oh, okay.
all of it. So to shut off the power, we brought out the power to Marine Power. And then Public Works, we brought out to do a drain and stormwater evaluation, as well as block off the streets. They brought out their streets equipment to do some signage.
Yeah.
And then we also utilized them for some citizen notification stuff on the sides, and then redirecting. So, and we literally have the best city ever. Like, they work
That
just
could've-
flawless.
That could have gotten worse than what, I mean, because of the apartments and the other business just north of it, and then the
It was with
apartments.
the wind, the first
Yeah.
wind at first was blowing the other direction.
And did you say how much water was used or not?
Between the hours of 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., we used 460,000 gallons. Yeah, and then my computing by the time, and that was just 9 p.m. on their peak inflow that Director Kakala could tell me. And then after that, I'm thinking there was about another 250,000 between the other water that we flew.
That's when you want
flown.
to, that's when you want to use water.
Yeah.
And
So-
you,
And we'll just get it
Yeah.
back this spring, so we'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's like 3 Stanley mugs, isn't it?
Yeah, it was actually pretty impressive how much water was inside that building.
oh, that was
But
crazy.
yeah, I could talk about that fire for a long time with you
Wow.
guys. There's a lot to that fire. So, getting back on fire suppression, these are our fire calls a year. So from 2001 to 2023, there's not a whole lot of increase on fire call volume. Of that, you actually have about 170 actual fires that come in. A lot of those are false alarms. I didn't bring that total data for you because I have so much I could show you. But 171 fires, that could be a fire from a garbage can that somebody put their cigarette butt in, to a car fire, and so we have 171 on average. Well, that's what we had in 2023 was 171, and that's about average. And that's fire suppression. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other areas of hazard if I get to them. But let me skip over to fire prevention. So we have one fire marshal in our city that is full-time, and then a deputy fire marshal that is full-time as well. Underneath the fire marshal's office, however, we handle a few other things. Community risk reduction program that Fire Marshal Pools handles. And I didn't really properly introduce myself.
I was just gonna say that for the new council members,
Yeah.
they don't know some of these.
So
Nice.
this is Jeff Poles, and he is our fire marshal and assistant chief that's over fire prevention. And then we have Steve Roberson in the back behind in the blue shirt, and he is our deputy fire marshal captain. So he's a captain that's assigned as the deputy fire marshal, and he gets to work with Poles, and then he really gets to learn a lot of these areas within that. And those are our 2 full-timers that we have in fire prevention. We do have, Scott's not here, I don't think, right now. So Scott White and George Zaboro just retired, but we have Mont Cooper, and then also, yeah, that's it for fire prevention. On our part-time list, that they'll go out and do fire inspections for us and also the construction inspections out there, as well as they do investigator work for us as well. So Scott White's one of Jeff Pulls' origin and cause investigators on that fire that they had up there the other night. We also brought in some of our shift people work underneath Jeff Pulls as the shift investigators. So, all right. Then if we go to the back, Matt Bolden is our shift battalion chief on shift today. We have 3 shift battalion chiefs. And then we also have a logistics and emergency manager, and I'll talk about Nick in a minute. But the 3 shift battalion chiefs, they stay on shift 24 hours a day. So they'll work 2 days on, 4 days off, like the normal fire schedule. And it works out to be a 56-hour work week. But they love it because they have those 4 days off. So when you average it out, they work 2 days a week, 2 days a week, 3 days in that next week, 2 days, 2 days, 3 days. It's a cool schedule. Every firefighter dreams of it. That's pretty fair. And their wives do too once they realize they can get rid of their spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, enough about that. Let's go over to Nick Haskin. He's our emergency manager and our logistics chief. Nick does a lot of work for us in the fashion of like when you're talking about ordering an engine, an air pack. Over his tenure, just in the last 2 years, he's ordered, I think, over 73 radios, 1 fire aerial apparatus, 1 brush truck, a battalion chief rig, 2 ambulances, 31 SCBAs, and I think I'll just stop there. It's a lot of material that kind of goes through, and then he has different crews that he works with on that. Emergency management is the part that I'll highlight with him. Your emergency manager doesn't serve only the fire department. It actually serves all departments and works actually for the mayor. So when you have an emergency activation and it's a water issue, then typically in command you'll have the mayor, you'll have the police and fire chief to assist with like incident command of rolling stuff out, but then you would bring in the public works director and the emergency manager. And the emergency manager's goal is to know what the county has on every single department. So like the flooding, for example, last year, we tied in the county resources. Nick would have attended those as well as Russ worked. And the awesome part about our directors in the city is what Nick has learned and what I learned during my tenure as the emergency manager is we have very well organized directors in the city. When they say they're prepared to know what and who they connect with, they know that. Officially by state law, we're required to have an emergency manager, but they do a good job as training those new directors up to par with what they do need to know when they do roll over and so forth. So, all right, and then that leaves Travis Botcher. I'm going to get to him in just a minute, and so I'll give you an introduction to him as soon as I get through this, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, fire prevention, plan review. They take care of roughly 160 life safety inspections or sprinkler alarms, hood exams, and all of these. And those actually all Jeff Pulls does. To give you an idea, those take anywhere between an hour for if he's lucky, and most of the time 4 to 5 hours to do those reviews. And so it takes a good chunk of his day. We have over 4,000 annual business inspections we should be doing. You guys see the numbers, and I'm going to skip over this because you guys can really dial this in and look at it as time goes on, because I'll get you a copy of this PowerPoint. But this is what I really want to show you. It's the same information, but it is our grade sheet is what I would say. We're doing great on plan reviews. We have great construction inspection times. The downside is we only get about 1,000 inspections a year done on businesses. We just don't have the time to be able to roll through all. And I'm not saying all businesses need an inspection. So we started up another program. It's the self-inspection program, to where if you're a home business, we don't necessarily contact you. You get that with your business license, and it says, is your address displayed? Do you have a fire extinguisher? Do you have smoke alarms? Kind of rolls through the key things. If you're a small business that's in a 800 square foot space, you get the same inspection. We may come out once every 10 years to that business. But if you are a education place, you're going to get a full-on inspection. If you're a lithium battery storage place, you're going to definitely get a full inspection every year. And so what we do is we isolate our target hazards or our higher risk inspections, and we make sure we're hitting those every single year
That
based
makes
upon
sense.
that. Yeah. And the fire department is the only one that actually is responsible, or you could say has the authority to go in to a business and actually inspect it. Say our building department or code enforcement, they identify stuff as code complaints come in, but we have the ability and the responsibility within code to be in every single business, is how the code's written, which is, it's, you could say a little bit stressful on the idea of like we take on liability with that responsibility that the state issues to us as well. Fire inspections, or excuse me, fire investigations, we are up to date on. And then community risk program, we just are starting that, and that's in the development. The LIV program, I left LIV inspections. That's that program that you guys approved last year that is a database that tells us when somebody's sprinkler's out of compliance and the alarm system. And we have averaged over 1,000 of those reports already since July. And we average on month, usually about 30 are out of compliance that these guys are having to follow up on. And that's taking a large amount of time for that. So, this is definitely not a budget meeting or anything like that, but as I'm displaying the department, I promised, back at the time it was, Councilmember Markham, Phil, was up here and he said, hey, what does your growth look like? Because you guys last budget year, and I said, well, when I give my annual review with you guys, I'll throw out some ideas. One of my suggestions that I will always have on our budget is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound in fire safety. And so that's one of the areas that I feel like we do need to improve on over time. How does that look? That's a budget increase for us because we would have to add an additional full-time staff to fit that. I'm not here to propose that or anything, but that is the weakness that we have there. And I'll talk about funding with it as I get towards the end. I have a revenue slide and stuff. But I think we're tapped out. I've looked at, being that I came from fire prevention, what we can do. And I don't know as if we can run more efficiently than what we're running over there right now. We've cut out the fluff as much as we can. On anything else. Keeping our customer service is typically the fluff. As weird as that is, like, you know, you can do more inspections, but if you're short with people, that usually does not turn out well for you. So, all right, enough with fire prevention. Let's roll into emergency medical services. So this is Travis Botcher. I always get called, just to be clear, his son. And he's older than me. He's really not older than me though. But it's happened twice now, so I just like to point that out. Yes, he's a cadet as well. And he is our assistant chief over our EMS system. He has a medical director that works in cohesiveness with him to run, and that's what it takes to run a paramedic program. Meaning a paramedic system in the whole city. We have 57 frontline EMS responders. So everybody that you see, including actually our day staff, are all EMS responders. So I keep up on my certification. So if I go out on a call, I'm still a paramedic and so forth. What is the difference between a paramedic and an EMT? I thought I might explain that to you briefly. A paramedic goes to roughly 45 college credit hours, or in other words, about a year program is the quickest you can jam that into, and they're in school for that whole time for that. An EMT just does a semester program. It's a 150-hour course, so there's a large difference. I'm striving always for our city to have paramedics throughout, and the reason why is because they make typically your best captains out there because they fully understand the full realm of what they're responsible for. And it also does hit that education model to where they're able to really dial in some of the needs of the fire service with the public, because they have that good patient assessment ability. He also handles the the required training hours, Travis does, the equipment maintenance, and then also a CQI program is continuous quality improvement. And I'll leave that at that, but we have a robust CQI program. Here's our 2018 versus our 2023 call volume map. I'll hit that and just kind of let you digest. Our call volume has expanded slightly. It's swollen up through that. And I don't think I probably have time today on this to hit over that, but here's just a rough overview that we talked about during our auto aid agreement, where our responses are per city that we're at. So we go about 1,000 times outside of Murray, and then the 5,600 times inside Murray. So our daily duties, what does a firefighter's daily duty look like? They check out the rigs in the morning, they have daily briefing, and then they have physical fitness, medical training, lunch, fire training projects, dinner projects, and bedtime. All in that time, they really actually go on calls, public relations, and they take care of fire prevention and work with Jeff Poles on that. So when they go out on Epic Gymnastics or any other place, on Murray City Hall, on Ice House, and they have an alarm question, then they correlate with the fire prevention to tie those guys in to assist them in fixing that system if it needs to be. So how do we size up compared to other departments? Here's the mayor's office found this one really intriguing. I showed them this a few months ago. Murray has 7,000 annual calls a year. That's 2,300 calls per station. We have 5 people per station. And we have an FTE, a full-time employee, 19.3 assigned per day. When you break that down, because we have some on vacation all the time. So if you look at South Salt Lake, for example, they're a 3-station department. They have 6,400 calls a year per unit, 2,100. 6 to 7 per station they have assigned. And that's why I say we operate on a Ferrari level with a Chevy budget type thing. We do run a lean machine. What does that cost us? It causes us overtime, typically a little bit more. Right now our guys are staffing, guys and gals are staffing that overtime when needed. When we look at the growth of the city, this is where this next slide kind of comes in. Here's our call volume trajectory. The overall is the green. The red line is the medical calls. The blue is the fire calls. And the yellow down there is transports. That's your revenue. I don't have revenue prior to 2018 because we weren't on the same data collection system that we're on now. We weren't receiving that from the billing company. Every home that we add in Murray is going to add a roughly 0.1 calls per year. Every apartment unit, I do know this, adds 0.2 calls per year. And that averages typically by our growth that I see through CED, about 100 calls per year is what I expect. When we added a second ambulance to a third ambulance, we were at 1,890 calls per unit. When we went to 3, we dropped to 1,260, and that was in 2012 with the history. In today's day and age, or 2022 or 2023, if we ever added a 4th ambulance, it would drop us to 14. We're at 1,953 calls with that 5,800. Notice that is different than our 7,000 calls because I'm running old data, and this is by ambulances, not overall call volume, not counting fires. So there's the difference between the 2,300, actually it was 22 something, and the 1950 number, 1953 number. So this is what I want to be on your mind of this department thing. Just like fire prevention, as we grow up in height as a city, you as a council should really be prepared. Eventually, we are going to be there where it'll be forced. I think right now our employees are feeling it, and they're voicing. Not all employees are voicing, but a good number are saying, we gotta add another rig to the city. We can't continue on this same call volume and get all of the same stuff done. I've done different stuff, pulled some duties off of them because that's your most cost-effective method to run, is to run fire prevention harder, and then making sure they can go out and do the inspections while the crews are responding on calls. But to give you an idea, to add a single ambulance to the city costs you around $700,000. And if you wanted to add a 4-person ambulance, that's 1.8. And if you wanted to add an ambulance and an engine, which is not what I would actually suggest is our response model, that'd be 2.2 million. My suggestion in the future, you guys should really consider how are we going to do this within the budget and work with the mayor and myself a little bit more in depth. So that's what I see on the horizon. It's a conversation for later, not for now. But I do think that should be on your forefront of what we're looking at.
Are you guys saving your pennies and nickels and?
For our operations budget, yes. And this is actually where I come to answer that on this slide. Our wildland deployments, that's one of the reasons why I enjoy our wildland deployments, is because if I see a money revenue generator, there is. We don't do, I'm working backwards here on the slides. Impact fees we don't do in the city. There's a lot to that, and it can't fund personnel. So I need to kind of dispel that with that. And we don't charge fire impact fees in the city of Murray. State billing rates are never going to be an increase to fund this unless you guys have greater powers to increase our.
Do other cities charge impact fees, fire impact fees?
They do. It's actually a hot topic this year up at the legislature because they're trying to pull some of the ability for you to purchase a fire engine with impact fees. We're one of the few that don't within the state. I'll leave it at that, knowing that it's a much bigger conversation that you'd probably want to ask Brenda and the attorney's office, and then read the legislature, and then dial us in. I can't fully explain impact fees myself, and I think that's one of the biggest struggles out there. That's why it's up at the legislature as a hot topic, is because they feel like fire departments are misusing some of those fees, I would dare say. I don't know, here I am, so.
Oh, sounds like something we need to.
Yeah, increasing calls, the restructuring. I feel like I'm probably right at my time.
Yeah.
And I'm there. So,
Well, yeah.
yeah. Sorry. I went about 7 minutes over, but I didn't quite start.
Joey, you did really well.
You did really
So that's a lot of
You
information.
focused and-
Yeah, can I ask a really quick question? And this is regarding the Vine Street fire. How does a business go about once the fire's over and cleaning up and taking it down? Do you have a timeline for them, or
Yeah,
can you explain that to us a little
So-
better how that works?
You have all of 1 minute.
okay.
Sorry, I just.
I'll be quick because now I only got 50 seconds. But, how that works is within the fire code, they are required to clean up, and it doesn't say a 30 days and 90 days. They have to clean up within a respectable amount of time. It doesn't use the word respectable, but within an approved amount of time. And the authority having jurisdiction, i.e. myself as your fire chief, and then I delegate that to the fire marshal, work with that business owner to work with the process. So long as we see progress, in that case, we see progress, that stuff moving out. That's such a large structure, it will take a little bit longer than a house fire. A house fire, we may give 30 days to. A building like that, it may take 2 months. And so I think since we're on air and the public may be listening to this, I think you could expect this work to start within 30 days. And then I'm hoping it should be completed within 2 months. I really hope it's not up there for much longer than that, because it does pose a large risk to, people that venture in those areas, which it is trespassing, and the public is not able to go on that property. But we do realize somehow they are going to break and enter, and unfortunately that happens.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now we're on to discussion item number 2, Open and Public Meetings Act and Anti-Harassment Training, GL Critchfield. Presenting, you have 20 minutes. But I will give you 5 of mine.
No,
That's all
don't
right.
you dare. I have all kinds of questions of you. I have no answers.
So, I can do this in 5 minutes. I'll move you. So state law requires that public bodies have annual training in the Open Public Meetings Act. I note on the agenda, I have a second presentation, that's for harassment, and that came about, I think, if I remember, primarily because Councilman Turner thought that's a good idea a few years ago and proposed that, and the council agreed. So we'll go through those, both those tonight. Again, it's a state law that requires it. It actually places the responsibility on the city council chair. She works through Jennifer to schedule this and then with me as well. The public policy the legislature has said is that the state, its agencies, those of us, political subdivisions, exist to conduct people's business. And that because of that, we should be deliberating openly and taking our actions openly. That is the Utah State public policy. Openly refers to being able to observe it. Open does not necessarily mean participate. You have a public meeting and you have public hearings within public meetings. Public meetings are open to the public, but they are not necessarily a place where the public can comment unless they are invited to do that. In the city council meeting, we have the citizen comment portion where they can say basically what they want in terms of what you have jurisdiction over. And then we have public hearings that are specific to an item on the agenda. So public observation is the key there for acting and deliberating openly. And I need to probably go back and just say this as well, in terms of deliberating openly. You act when you vote, you deliberate when you talk, right? And that's why we caution you not to be on the dais whispering to each other or texting each other, because that is not open deliberation. So when you're on the dais and you're talking about an item, we want you to talk. We want you to put it on the record. The public wants you to talk, wants to hear you. That's how they see how you come to your decisions. A meeting, of course, is when we convene the council, there's a quorum present. Chance gatherings, of course, social gatherings are not considered meetings. Quorum is three of you for city council purposes. And then we notify the public. So you may or may not know this, once a year, we send to the, I think it must be the public notice website and as well as the media, our scheduled meetings for the year. Those are our regular meetings. If you meet outside that, that is called a special meeting. That's when we then let the public know we're going to meet on a meeting night that is not regularly scheduled. In addition to that annual notice, which is one notice that goes out, we have to give 24 hours notice of each public meeting. You send the agenda, the date, time, and place. And what's important on the agenda is that someone looking at the agenda can have a decent idea of what's going to be heard in case they want to be there for that agenda item. You see up there on the screen, the 24-hour notice requirement may be disregarded in an emergency, unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah, but what's in an emergency?
You tell me, what would you feel would be a reason to meet without having to tell the public before?
Mayor passed away.
Could be, yeah, could be.
I don't know.
Do you wanna
Like,
give another
okay,
example?
Fashion Place Mall,
What's another example?
Fashion Place Mall collapsed, earthquake.
Okay,
There's a,
Disaster.
yeah, could be.
okay.
In that case, you then give notice of what you did as soon as you can. That's good. Don't forget. What's your back, Mayor?
Oh,
That was interesting.
She's all a straight face.
Well, that's an emergency to me if we lose our mayor.
So, as I said on the agenda, the wording we use is reasonable specificity. You have to say what you're gonna be deliberating about, so people know whether they wanna come or not. Closed meetings, we've talked about this a little bit. Closed meetings, you have to have a quorum present, and 2/3 of the council present at the meeting have to vote to approve the closed meeting. These are pretty much frowned upon unless it really is necessary. And why do you think that is? Because the public policy is we do things openly.
In Murray, we do. There's a lot of other cities that do not. I mean, they just expect to have a closed meeting during their agenda, so.
Yeah, I've seen that
We
where
don't here.
some actually put on their agenda, every agenda
Yes.
that they may close it. I think that's, I don't know, I'm not gonna say publicly, but
We don't, we don't do
it could
that.
lull
I
the
think
public to
it's-
sleep, you
yeah.
know, anyway. The next slide talks about the reasons you can close a meeting. Probably the one that we have used, and very sparingly at all, is the discussing the sale of real property. And the reason that's okay, you can imagine, is if you were to discuss it openly, prices or whatever, you may have speculators going out to bid on the property. So we try to keep that under wraps until it is an offer is made or whatever. Other reasons we don't really have, we just have not done this very often. There was an article in the Tribune, I think it was several years ago, that compared different cities, and we were on the lower end of the scale of having closed meetings, so
We don't.
we're actually kind of proud of that.
Yep.
It has to be recorded, minutes can be written, that type of thing. Electronic meetings. So I think what's important to keep in mind with electronic meetings is, at least I think the policy of the city councils, past city councils has been, if you're elected to the city council, you need to be here. So the public can see you, hear you. There are reasons that we can have electronic meetings. There are reasons where you can phone in, but that's by ordinance. And the idea is that, again, if you're elected and you represent a portion of the city, you ought to be here as opposed to not here, calling in all the time. That's what this is, part of what this is about. The other part this came about also was more of a focus during COVID. As you know, those, you would have seen us online, what was that, for a year or so. Anyway, there's specific ways that you are authorized to have electronic meetings. And that we have to have an ordinance, which we do, which is very limited in terms of that. Now, enforcement of the Open Public Meetings Act. Again, this is a business meeting for the city council. And if you were to have somebody that was disrupting the meeting, you could ask that they be removed if it was really disorderly conduct. Not necessarily free speech and saying things that we don't like. You do have to have a thick skin if you're an elected official. But there could be times when the line is crossed, and if that's the case, you can call to have them removed. Final actions, if you have violated the Open Public Meetings Act, are voidable, meaning you can take action and that can be undone by a court. Public enforcement is by the Utah Attorney General and District Attorney. And then private enforcement is somebody could actually sue to compel us, compel compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, or could undo what has been done through a private action.
So the disruption of meetings, I know some cities at times have removed public comments as even an option within their meetings. When is that acceptable? Is that something that really shouldn't be happening? Like,
It's a good question. We have had that as traditionally for as long as I've been here. There was also a bill, I want to say last session or 2 sessions ago, that was going to require it in all public meetings, more of it, that you had to do that. I guess on the one hand, you want to look at it as being responsive to citizens, right? And I think that you'll see in citizen comments, some comments are out there a ways, some are really on point. If it's not on the agenda, we can discuss it. We try not to most of the time. We shouldn't really, but we can discuss it as long as no action is taken. I think, to me, it seems like as a public body, it doesn't hurt to have it. I don't think I would ever recommend getting rid of citizen comment.
even if it's disruptive, like consistently disruptive.
Well, that's a little different. I mean, at some point, and that's where you look at the reasonable person, what would all you think would be a reasonable time to close it? If you agree on that, you can say that's enough. Yeah, you can do that.
So action can only be taken on an agended item.
Correct. That's right. And then I got emotional on this one, where Utah was the first state to actually pass an Open Public Meetings Act statute many years ago. So we should be upholding that heritage. And then there's a good quote from this that came from years ago. Democracy behind closed doors. You know, it sounds a little bit corny, I would say, but the reality is that to do things behind closed doors and exclude the public really undermines you as a public body. And I think the more open you are, the more you deliberate in public, the more you support your own goals as public officials. Any questions on that?
I comment, and
Yeah.
I always ask this.
Yeah.
So why is the legislature allowed to have closed sessions on an ongoing basis? They have it all the time.
Yeah,
So what's different about them?
they make the rules. That's part of it.
And they don't have to
Well,
follow them.
I'm sure they have their own justifications for why they do it, but this is state law, we're a creature of the state. The state makes rules for us, the state makes rules for itself. So, if you ask them, I don't know what they'd say. I assume it'd be because of the nature of what they're doing in their different partisan meetings. It's a good question.
I know.
Probably one good for them to answer at some point. Okay, we'll move on to the city council harassment training. See, Joy, this is how it's done. I'm totally kidding. Totally kidding. Totally kidding. Okay, so, as I said, several years ago, Councilwoman Turner suggested that we do the training on harassment. It is our policy that we maintain a work environment free from discrimination, intimidation, harassment, that type of thing. And this is what's important about this tonight. The city administration has a policy, anti-harassment policy, but that doesn't apply to the city council, right? Because the mayor is not over you, you are over you. So this is a rule that was drafted years ago and put into your city council rules that apply to you as opposed to the city employees. It's very similar, but it is, again, specific to the city council. Who's covered by this? It's in Rule 9, Council Relations and Anti-Harassment Policy, and it applies to you folks. Harassment is unwelcome conduct that's based on one of those protected classes. It is workplace harassment, which includes conduct that is unwelcome, demeaning, coercive, pervasive, ridiculing, that type of thing. We've talked before about comments that are demeaning, could be in writing, could be verbal, or use of unwelcome epithets, gestures, other physical conduct based on these protected classes, which is this harassment. It does not have to be of a sexual nature in order to be illegal. If you were to offend somebody based on their gender, and that conduct is severe or pervasive enough, that could be held to be illegal as well. Sexual harassment, which is what is in the news so often, is a form of sexual discrimination, and it is basically unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, or other conduct of a sexual nature. And it basically is when it's connected to your job. It's unwelcome, it's unwanted, and I think the key here is this. It says sexual conduct is unwelcome whenever the person subjected to it considers it unwelcome. So what that means is, if the actor who is doing the conduct, they're not the judge of whether that was unwelcome. It's the person receiving that conduct that determines whether that's unwelcome, and that's important to understand. Either gender may harass, either gender may be a victim. And of course, that first line kind of says it all. What constitutes sexual harassment can vary depending on the situation and people involved. Some of the examples are up there on the board, on the screen. What could be that? Unwelcome sexual advances, direct or indirect threats or bribes for sexual activity, unwelcome touching, brushing up against the person, that type of thing. And it goes on and on. A lot of these have been in cases where this comes from in part. And then the laws that apply, you've got the federal law, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, state law and you've got your own council rule 9. So in reporting this conduct, if it involves a city employee or an appointee to an advisory board or a commission, then you report that to the mayor, and that's because that's who has authority over those folks. If it involves one of you, your council staff, then we had decided years ago you report that to me for investigation. The investigation needs to be prompt and thorough, and as much as possible confidential. And then the corrective action is anyone who's found to violate the policy is subject to some type of corrective action, depending on what the offense was. And city council will not permit retaliation against anyone who makes a complaint or cooperates in an investigation. Any questions on that? We've heard a lot about it in the media. I think we've had a really pretty good track record here of not having a lot of that. Hope that continues. I think it will. I think city council will for sure. Any questions, comments? Why doesn't the legislature follow that?
All right, so it's my turn. Legislative update. I have all of 4 minutes. So, as I was instructed, this has been a very calm year compared to other years for the land use. This is one thing that Jennifer and I found on the table. You can just go over that, I'm not gonna read it, or you can read it. The one thing that I was very interested in is the modular homes that I have them in my district. And they're on Winchester and 7th West on the southwest corner. And they're very, very attractive looking.
Is it modular or manufactured?
Well,
Kind of one and the same.
they're the same. They put a house.
I'm saying, because I mean, the LDS Church is building modular
Just
temples
close,
right now,
yes.
right? And they're not the same as manufactured, so I was wondering if we're using the term interchangeably or not.
I think they're the same, that from what I interpret it, it's a modular home. It's a manufactured home.
It's
You
made
know.
off-site.
What?
It's made off-site.
And that's built on the site. They bring them in and so. The one thing that I was asked about was the Senate Bill 161. That's not going anywhere.
The IPP, IPA.
Yeah. That's just kind of, the horse is still in the barn. It's not out yet.
Did they ever attach a fiscal note to it?
No, there's nothing like that, no. So it's, I mean, we only got,
That's all they'd have to do.
how many days? 9? 10? 10 days left, so they just feel that this is,
Ooh,
what? Did something just change?
SB 161 has moved to the House.
Oh, jeez.
Huh,
The Senate passed it today.
wow, and I was just up
It's been
there at
circled for-
11 this
Yeah,
morning.
it's been circled for 2 weeks, but it moved to the House today.
See, as we're sitting here, it has changed now.
Isn't that how it
That's
goes?
why when I say something, it changes. But it's mainly, this whole thing has been, this LPC has been about housing, I feel. Everything's been about housing and how the governor can get his 335,000 new starter homes. My idea of a starter home is not their idea of a starter home. My idea of a starter home is no carport, no finished basement, no hot tub, no can lights, no granite countertop. It's a stripped down model, and if you want to build up your equity in these starter homes, then put your equity in them and then sell them. But that's their idea of a starter home and my idea of a starter home is two totally different ideas. So anyways, he just made a comment. The governor sent me a letter, and he has Steve Waldrop, my senior advisor for housing strategy, and he's come to us 2 times so far, Jennifer? I think, yeah, twice, for housing strategy innovation, and will be shepherding all these efforts. He will be working closely with ULCT to ensure your communities have the resource needed to accelerate the number of starter homes development in all areas of the state. And then his last comment of his email was, during this legislative session over the next year, we will be working collaboratively on a suite of policy proposals to complement our budget proposal that will make a real and measurable impact on housing supply and cost in Utah. We urge you to help us both implement these policies to help us build 35,000 new starter homes in Utah in the next 5 years.
So starter home is at like 400,000, 300,000?
We don't know.
Do they,
They
has
haven't
he
even.
defined it?
I keep asking that when I'm there, and they just kind of look at me like
What do you think?
they
You
don't
figure
have an answer. I've never gotten an answer. I think their idea of a starter home is going to be a condo. Correct me if I'm wrong. Condo, townhome, duplex, twin home, and a house. That's a starter home for them. It's something that they can build their equity up, and then they can move into something if they want.
But a townhouse in Murray is $600,000.
Mhm. Well,
That's,
on 7th West and 53rd, they're over 600,000.
Oh.
So it's very frustrating, but hey,
and do you have any more information on the fire impact fees?
we haven't even heard anything on that. No, that has never even been brought up.
Yeah, if you give me a minute, I can
Sure.
look up to where it's at.
Yeah.
One second.
Sounds
They just kind of handle just land issues. I haven't heard,
Yeah, ULCT's really land use
It's-
heavy
yeah,
this year.
I haven't heard anything on that.
Yeah,
But they
this is why
should be
these guys
doing
are so
fire
great.
impact
House
fees.
Bill 175, and it's maybe just in House rules that they're proposing. It's one on our fire watch list meeting. The fire chiefs are watching it.
First reading.
What?
First reading in the House is where it is.
Who's carrying it?
Matthew Quinn.
175.
But it's been at first reading since January 16th. It doesn't seem like it's. Things could change
I know,
fast the
we
last
were
2
up
weeks,
there
but
from
right now
a-
it hasn't moved.
we've been there since 10:45, and we left like after 2, and they said, this is,
It's the last 2 weeks. It's crazy.
so hold on.
Get him in.
Yeah.
I guess the horse is getting its saddle on and it's gonna be heading out of the barn. So,
Except for the first 2 weeks when they,
yeah. Yeah. But, so anyways, take a look at this guiding our growth. It's really interesting how they're even talking about transportation today, UTA. They were talking about that today. They didn't get into water at all. They didn't even touch water at all, so. Sometimes I get up there and it's like, is this for us, Murray City? Because we're like landlocked. And all these other people, all these other cities, they have tons of land. I mean, West Jordan, they're still going out west, farther out west, and
yeah, but there are a lot of these bills that impact us even though you
Oh,
don't
yes.
realize it.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
it doesn't seem obvious.
oh yes,
but-
like the building inspector. You what?
That's a problem, huh?
Yeah, so, I mean,
So are they what are they doing with the building inspector?
there's a lot of things that they're re-looking at, and they're rebuilding the
Making it
bill.
easier for the builders?
Yeah, Yeah. So anyways, we've got to get going on to our next meeting. If there's no other business, this meeting is adjourned. Alrighty, let me shift my stuff over. Okay, welcome to the RDA meeting of Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. I would like to excuse Councilwoman Rosalba Dominguez, RDA member. I would like to welcome Brooke, the mayor, GL, Councilmember Paul Pickett, myself, Councilwoman Diane Turner, and Councilmember Adam Hawk and Jennifer. Thank you for attending today. Okay, so our first agenda item is approval of minutes of December 19th, 2023 and January 2nd, 2024. Do I have a motion for those?
I move that we approve the minutes of December 19th, 2023 and January 2nd, 2024.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first by Councilmember Paul Pickett and a second by Councilwoman Diane Turner. Roll call?
Sure. Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Hawk?
Aye.
Mr. Pickett?
Aye.
Ms. Cotter?
Aye. Thank you. So they have been voted on, and it looks like they've been approved. So we'll now go into citizen comments. Public comments can be made in person during the meeting. I'm just reading what I see. Jennifer, please correct me if I am wrong. You may submit by sending an email before this meeting. Sorry, I'm reading that. All comments are limited to 3 minutes or less. Email comments will be read into the meeting record. And I'm going to ask Zach Smallwood if there is any emails. No emails. I got a thumbs down. That's perfect. So now we'll turn it over to any council or any citizen comments. Okay, seeing that there's no citizen comments, we are going to go on to discussion item number 3. Townsend House, Cahoon House, Plaza, Zachary Smallwood will be presenting. Welcome, welcome.
I didn't expect you to go that fast, so I ate a piece of chocolate, so I apologize. You went
We're
super
on a
fast.
time crunch.
I
here.
know, and I'm delaying you even further. So the reason why I'm before you guys tonight, good evening, by the way.
Good evening.
The reason I'm before you tonight is just give you an update of where we're at, and where we're headed, to give you kind of an idea of what we're planning, and then to prepare you for things coming up. So, as you remember, last year, it was discussed, well, it's been a few years, discussing moving the Townsend House next to the chapel, and last year we found out that was gonna cost a lot of money. And staff felt that we could better use that money in reinvesting in that area where it already is located. We could do a lot of work to that site already. One of the things that we've been floating is kind of a plaza space that connects the mansion, the Townsend House, and the Cahoon House, and then also tying that kind of back in with the City Hall plaza as well. So kind of a grander, bigger green space for the downtown. So we have engaged with a consulting firm called IO Land Arch. They're a landscape architecture firm. She worked on the Dumke Plaza up in Ogden. She's actually taught my landscape architecture class in school. That's how I kind of learned about her. And so I reached out to her, kind of get an idea of what she thought. So she's sent over a proposal to conduct some concept plans. As part of it, she would be providing the RDA with 3 potential concept plans in varying levels of price points, so kind of a low, medium, and high of what that looks like. Also includes some public engagement processes and potential, this is going to be a new word for you, but it's called like tactical urbanism. And so it's where you actually go in and put in temporary structures or temporary, just temporary stuff that's not supposed to be built into the space to kind of test the ideas out beforehand, before you get into actually spending a lot of money and seeing if people will actually use the space. A lot of times you get like wood tape, like camping tables, picnic tables, that's what I'm saying, not camping tables. For people to hang out, provide a little bit of area for like food trucks or whatever, to kind of see if that space will be engaged. Those are just random ideas. So the bid to do these concepts is $27,000. So again, that will go through developing the concepts, doing some public engagement, and then also providing us with a plan to do kind of that tactical urbanism, kind of setup. So I wanted to give you a heads up on that. That might require a budget amendment, I'm not sure yet. So we wanted to kind of give you an update on that. And I'm happy to answer questions.
So with this tactical urbanism, does the proposal include the long-term, like if it works, we keep it? Is that part of the 27,000, or is it 27,000 and then the permanent structures?
So it's not the permanent structures. So it would just be developing the concept so that the city and the RDA has a good idea of what it could cost. It is going to include that in those 3 concepts, kind of a rough budget estimate of what each of those concepts would cost. So that you as the RDA and then the city as well, if you decide to pursue one of those options, you'll know a rough estimate of what that's gonna end up costing.
When will we have access to these?
So the concept plans she would be working on, so I'm working on getting a contract signed with the attorney's office right now. or working towards getting that. It depends on how much the RDA has, if we can just do that under professional services. Haven't talked to Brenda about it yet, so it's the first time she's hearing about it. So, we're gonna be moving, we're on a pretty fast timeline. We wanna get these done pretty quick, so sometime in the, probably, after the contract signed, I think it's about 6 weeks.
Okay, so I'm not sure I'm understanding this. So their concept plans for what to do with the Cahoon House Plaza and the Townsend House?
Yeah, so it's kind of like preliminary site design, right? So looking at what it could potentially have. So engaging with the citizens, you know, a lot of things have been thrown out there. You know, people have mentioned like splash pads, they've mentioned ice rinks, they've mentioned, you know, just general green space. And so trying to hammer that, or, you know, a place for performances, like outdoor performances or something.
Right.
There's a lot of options out there, so what she's doing, would be doing, is gathering that public input and working towards developing a space that would be able to be programmed to do that.
Okay, and so you're not sure of a timeline on that then?
Well, the development of it, after we have the contract signed to engage, I anticipate it's probably 6 weeks to get it done, 6 to 8 weeks. And then we would come back, Chalet Larson is her name, with the firm, would probably come back and, you know, go over her process and show you the concepts.
Okay, that's after the preliminary legal stuff, okay.
Yeah, that's just getting through the contract to pay her to do the work.
So is it gonna prioritize beautification and walkability, or are we just focusing on beautification?
All the above.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, that's good, because I think we've talked about that
Yes.
so much,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Yeah, and that's part of, that kind of goes into the next discussion item too, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, so we're on to our next one. Discussion item number 4. Form-based zoning for the MCCD district. Zachary Smallwood. Oh, there you are.
Yeah,
again.
here I am. So I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but also last year, the RDA funded to do a strategic plan for the MCCD area to look at heights, massing, and materials. Overall, looking at the MCCD and gathering additional input. Sorry, let me back up. The MCCD is the Murray City Center District. That's what we're sitting in right now. It's the zoning district overall. That roughly goes from 48th to Vine Street, a little bit further south on the east side, and then from Box Elder to Center Street. It's about 100 acres-ish, and it's made up of a mixed-use zoning district called the MCCD zone. So the RDA funded a plan to look at the materials and the scale and massing of buildings, how they should be laid out a little bit more, and trying to guide decision-making a little bit more with the citizens in mind. And so we wrapped that up in early January, the study, and now it's working through the adoption process. So it went to the MCCD Review Committee on January 25th. It will be going to the Planning Commission on March 7th, and then it'll come before the City Council, not the RDA, but the City Council on sometime after the Planning Commission. The reason I bring that up is because one of the recommendations, I think it's the first recommendation, is to adopt what's called a form-based zone for the MCCD area. Now, a form-based zone, so if you go back and think of the city kind of like a big puzzle, right? We have, each piece represents different types of a building or a use. So like, you know, this is a civic use. And, you know, Fashion Place Mall is a commercial use, and you have your residential uses, things like that. So, and the zoning codes are like the rules for how that puzzle works together, and how those pieces fit together. So under traditional zoning, which is what we have citywide, it's the most common way cities organize, and the city decides what kind of activity can happen or buildings in each area. So again, I'll take the example of like Fashion Place. It was zoned for commercial, it was developed as a commercial building, and we regulate the uses in there as kind of retail shops. And then, let's see. And then it focuses on mainly separating different uses. So typically, except for our mixed use codes, you have like commercial, residential, office. They don't mesh well, and they don't do a lot of harmony together. So where a form-based code comes in, it's a different approach to putting that puzzle together. Instead of focusing so much on what happens inside the building, so, you know, commercial, residential, whatever, it looks more at how the buildings fit together into a cohesive statement, pretty much. So how they relate to each other. And it sets rules, a form-based code sets rules for the size and shape of buildings, how far they should be from the street, and how they should look from the outside. And then, again, like I mentioned, how they relate to surrounding buildings and the public spaces. So the idea behind it is to create a more visually appealing and walkable area where buildings and spaces are designed to work well together. So how it's really different from a traditional zoning code is the focus. Again, I kind of mentioned we're not looking so much at what's going on inside the building. So the type of use, civic, retail, whatever. It also gives flexibility. So you may have retail on the ground floor, residential above it, what have you, kind of like our mixed use zoning has right now. And then it does rely heavily on design and appearance, and it pays attention to that. So looking at, you know, the types of materials that are being used. So a few things that are really important to mention about form-based codes in general are that they promote walkability and connectivity in a place. They can actually end up simplifying the development process because everything is so spelled out. It allows for somebody to come in and know exactly what the city's looking for as far as, you know, what a building should look like. It also can help reduce the time it takes to approve a project because you're not back and forth with like, oh, you're not meeting this setback, oh, you know, all the fun stuff that we do behind the scenes. It encourages the mixed use development, which, you know, that's the traditional, what downtown Murray has done its whole life. It's been a mixed use code or an area, a mixed use area before there was even a zoning code. Can improve economic vitality, attracting investment in underutilized areas, support sustainable development. They contribute to sustainability by encouraging developments that are more energy efficient and reduce the need for car travel. And then also being in a walkable environment, you're walking to your daily needs. So what we're explaining all this is important because I've been meeting with, I reached out to the WFRC, which is the Wasatch Front Regional Council, about experience they've had with working with other cities and developing form-based codes. They gave me a list of 6 or so consultants, and I've been interviewing them. 2 weeks ago, I interviewed all of them, kind of get an idea of what things like this will cost for this kind of area and things like that. Getting their approach on form-based codes, lots of little stuff. What I kept hearing is somewhere in the ballpark between $90,000 and $150,000 to develop that for the MCCD area.
Is that over
Sorry.
the regular cost? Is that
Regular cost
of developing it?
Well-
I'm confused what the,
so it would be developing a new zoning ordinance for the MCCD.
right?
So it would be eliminating the existing MCCD zone, completely removing it, pretty much a repeal and replace.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about
Yeah,
is.
exactly, is repealing the existing MCCD zone and replacing it with a form-based code, which would allow this kind of different type of development activity to work.
Okay, I
Yeah.
need much more information.
And you will get a lot more information. This is kind of a primer and a discussion, just discussing it overall, giving you an idea of what it could end up costing, so that if and when we decide to pursue this, we can work on getting that going forward.
And why would we?
Because I think the importance of this central business district, which is this RDA area, is to redevelop the downtown. And if you want it to work, from what we've heard from the citizens in that strategic plan, that's the recommendation that came out of it, was that people are interested in the look and the feel. I think, Ms. Turner, you also mentioned that you would like to see more brick buildings and more,
Energy efficiency and
energy
walkability.
Yeah, and walkability and those things. A form-based code encourages that. And doesn't encourage it, it mandates it to a finer detail, a finer grain than what would normally happen under the existing MCCD. And what's happened, to be frank, is that in the past almost 6 years I've been here, the MCCD has been modified every year I've been here. And so it's gotten really, really, really hard to interpret because of little changes here and there, full rewrites in 2021, that has made it so you could ask somebody, what's the density allowed in the MCCD? It'll take me 15 minutes to verify the answer because I'm scrolling through a lot of code to say, where is it? Because there's not a thing that just says density. It's hidden in the code.
Right. And
So,
we've
and this
needed-
would help simplify that process as well.
Okay, and you can compare and contrast the new code, form-based code with what we currently have.
You can, I wouldn't say you could compare and contrast, really, because it's kind of like I was mentioning in kind of the setup, really, is that this is it's been tried and tested in many places all over the country, form-based codes. It is a different approach in the way that development is handled. It is not like the traditional zoning where you just say, here you go, here's some setbacks. It really dictates
All right.
what the buildings look like and how they react to each other, and what they will end up looking like, and kind of explain that.
Yeah, it's just so important that we get this right.
That's why,
And so that's why I need much more information.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, so,
So I can give you a couple examples right off the bat. Also, be advised that one of them is kind of a more modern take, right? I don't think that's the approach that Murray wants to take. We want kind of more the brick look. But for example, the central 9th area of Salt Lake, so 9th South, and about between Third West to about, I don't know, probably like West Temple. That is governed under a form-based code. One that's more probably our style is Midvale. Midvale's Main Street is a prime example, and they are having quite a building boom, actually. The old bank building, if you remember that on Center in Maine, is being completely redone. There are 2 brand-new projects going up. I see them out my back window, and I get really excited about it.
And that's form-based,
those
what
are
Midvale's doing is
Yes.
form-based.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, it's along Midvale's Main Street. I won't plug in and show you pictures right now because I don't think that's on. But the reason why I'm kind of before you today is to give you a really rough introduction to it. And that's kind of what I've done, is give kind of a rough introduction and explain how much it could end up costing. And I think it is worth the time and the money to make sure that we do get it right. Because I think over the past, 6 years that I've been here, it's been trying to get things right by taking little piecemeal changes. I think that at this point, we need to wipe the slate clean and start from scratch here. Go ahead.
So with in this form base, when you talk about uniform buildings or whatnot, are we saying like design guidelines that have to be there, so you can't have like a modern and historical building right next to each other? The whole place is looking like historical, is that?
So it allows for a mix of interpretations. So you can get into architectural styles. You can drill down that deep. But what it really does is look at like the buildings and say, for example, the spacing of windows, right? That's one of the ones that are really common in creating a uniform. I hate to say uniform because I get this picture in my head of almost like Stepford, right? So like everything looks the same no matter what. That's not the intent. There should be character, there should be liveliness, but there should be a cohesiveness. I think when I was talking to the mayor's office about this in an RDA planning meeting, is harmony, not homogeny. So it shouldn't be all the same, but it should be harmonious and meet together. And that's kind of what we're striving for. So it could be a little bit more modern building, but it will fit in with the look and feel of the rest of it. But I don't think you're gonna have like a Frank Gehry, you probably don't know who he is, but a crazy looking building, so, yeah.
We're gonna be getting pictures and much more information on this, right? This is just an introduction.
Just a I wanted to put it on your radar, because it was on the RDA planning meeting and the mayor's office radar, and I wanted to give you an idea and a heads up of where we're headed. We do wanna move pretty aggressively. We want to try and get something written quickly, but thoroughly, and so that we can start working on Block 1. I know that's a big priority for the city to get Block 1
Right.
redeveloped.
And that would be really good, so we need to get the information as aggressively as possible as well.
Yes, yep,
And if there's places we can go, or, whatever we can do, if we need to do a field trip, or like, as we've done before,
definitely,
that's always helpful.
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
okay.
And with that, if you could send us examples
I
of
was
like you've
happy-
talked about Midvale and Salt Lake, but if we could get, any other examples, I'd really like to see
Yeah.
what this is looking like in
Yes,
real world.
yeah, I can definitely send that out tomorrow. Not right after this meeting, but tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, and Zach, can I say that I've been hearing from a lot of constituents about the importance to get started in this. We've talked and talked and talked and talked, and let me tell you, my family background is restaurant. I feel like we've had a cafeteria here in Murray, where whichever cook comes in brings in their specialty. And it's been yummy cooking, but it's just been a mishmash of everything. So seems like we're choosing an ethnic restaurant now. We're saying, okay, we're all gonna cook, let's go with my favorite, Mexican, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the whole downtown is gonna have
Yeah.
that one look.
Michelin star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad you're moving forward with it and looking forward to receiving more information.
For sure.
So are we still considering, are we going to have a developer do this? Or are we going to be the developers? Have we gotten any further on that?
That is not something that I've been, with regards to this, no. A developer wouldn't necessarily be involved in the development of the form-based code.
So
That-
this would
because
be
it's-
something we would be doing?
Yes.
As a city?
Yeah, yep, because we're the ones that control the zoning ordinances.
Right.
So what the ask really is eventually is that the RDA fund the writing of this form-based code with a consultant for the city to adopt as the new code for this
Okay.
area.
So then determining if we have one developer, two developers, whatever.
That's for, yeah,
Okay,
that's gonna be a
down
real
the
estate.
road and they will then just have to do
Yeah.
this code. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other discussions on this?
Yes, yes. Okay, thank you.
At this time? Okay, we're on to number 5, project update with Phil Markham and Zach Smallwood present,
Just me,
just
just me this time.
welcome.
It's nice to be here. I'd like to add, just as an aside to the form-based code, I've had to be brought up to speed on this very rapidly because I'm not a planner by trade. And it's fascinating. What you're going to learn is really, really cool stuff. And you'll see examples. It's used all over the country, and there are all kinds of different form-based codes. There's not one form-based code. And the beauty of it really is, Diane, that if you have one developer come in that wants to take on this project, great. He's got his blueprint that he can kind of work with. If you've got 5 developers that want to do individual buildings in that, they've still got a blueprint that they know what they have to adhere to. So you, as Zach said, you maintain that cohesive look that everything looks planned. It doesn't look haphazard. And
that would
that's
be great.
really what we're going for. And so you folks will be involved intimately every step of the way.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
thank-
just to give you an update on a couple of projects. Again, Zach talked about the Townsend House. One of the concerns I've had in looking at the Townsend House is its condition. The exterior of the building is really starting to fail. NeighborWorks has done a good job maintaining the inside of the house. It's a functional office. There are no issues in there. However, there's stuff on the roof that's been there for, I don't know, a couple of years, leaves and branches and stuff. The front porch is a hazard. The steps are a hazard. The railing needs to be worked on. We've got paint that's peeling, shingles that need to be stained on the exterior and that. So I took the liberty of contacting some contractors that Neighborhood House actually, NeighborWorks actually recommended to me that they work with, that does the renovations for their projects that we give them money for and that. I only had one response. They're very busy right now. And this gentleman has provided a detailed estimate of the work that he would do. And he is fully committed to doing this if we can agree to that. The cost would be $40,000 for the exterior renovation of the building. And that would be fixing the window that's broken up above, fixing all of the eaves and the soffit, replacing the wood on the porch with tongue and groove wood as it is there today. He would keep as much of the original historic character as possible. And so that's why the cost is a little bit more. He has to have the tongue and groove planks made for the porch and so forth.
And you
some
said
of the-
40,000?
40,
Okay.
yes, 40,000, yes. So it's considerably less than what we were talking about with moving the house. And with the advent of the plaza, if, you decide to go forward with that, we need to have these homes looking better. I don't have an estimate on what it would cost to to bring the exterior of the Cahoon House up, but I will work on that in the future for you. So that's something just to consider, and we would anticipate coming back to you in the future and asking for a formal approval to move ahead with that. That is well within our purchasing guidelines that we can just sign that contract and move forward.
Could
So-
the same person that's fixing the Cahoon House do, the Townsend House still,
I'm sure he could.
could he do while he's over there, could he look at
Well,
the other one?
I haven't asked for an estimate on that, so,
Right.
but yeah, I'm
I
sure
figured
he
if
would.
he's over there,
Sure, I'm sure he would welcome the opportunity to work on that as well, so, and I'm not really sure, excuse me, I don't know if I'll have to come back to you for, approval to move forward with this. Is this something that, GL, how would I do that?
I look for Brenda to look at your budget to see where this would come from. I don't think it's been appropriated specifically for this.
No, it
obviously,
has
but
not. It's not a line item,
That's the question.
okay,
Yeah, that doesn't seem unreasonable. That's
okay.
40,
Well, we will have that discussion with finance then. And also, I wanted to mention that we've been contacted recently from the owner of the ore sampling mill. Mr. Bart Warner has been contacting us. And
can
he's
you
very
explain where that is for the new council?
Third West and 5450 South. It's the big eyesore, the big concrete eyesore that is a graffiti canvas right now. It's been a huge cleanup project, not only with the vehicles and equipment that were there, but the contamination on site. He's very close to being able to close out the cleanup of that site, and he wants to move on to the next step, which is developing the site and realizing his vision. So we'll be talking with him this next month, and it's nice to see some progress moving forward with that. That is an RDA area.
Yep.
And so we anticipate activating the area here very shortly. So that's kind of exciting news. That sat there for a long time, and
Oh.
he's worked at it, he's pecked away at it, and we're finally at a point where we'll see
Wasn't it a
some real
paint
progress.
store or something like?
No, it
that?
was an ore sampling mill where they would take the ore samples, the rocks that they
Oh,
would
yes.
mine, and they'd drop them from that big tower.
Yeah.
And that's how they broke them apart.
Oh, okay,
And then once they were broken apart, then they could see what the quality of the ore was.
oh, okay,
So,
okay. I'm very excited to see that done.
okay, and that's really what I've got to report. So that concludes our meeting tonight. We're a little faster than we said, so if there's any questions I can answer, or, okay, thank you.
Right, and I
Thanks,
need
Phil.
to make a correction. It's RDA Chair Rosalba Dominguez is not here today, and I'm the vice chair, just to make that clarification. If there's no other business for the RDA meeting, then this meeting is adjourned.
All right, I am going to call this meeting to order. I am Adam Hawk. I am our council district number 5. And conducting this meeting, sitting up here, we have all the council members, as well as Mayor Hales, Brooke Smith, our city recorder, GL Critchfield, our city attorney, and Jennifer Kennedy, our executive director. And we'd like to excuse Rosalba Dominguez, so we don't have every council member. Councilmember Dominguez is excused today. We have the other 4 council members. So we're going to start with a Pledge of Allegiance, and Kim Sorensen's going to lead us there.
Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first matter of business is approval of the minutes for January 16th, 2024 and February 16th, 2024. Council, do you have any corrections, changes, any comments? Okay, then I will entertain a motion. We'll take them together.
I move to approve the minutes for council meeting January 16th, 2024, and council meeting February 6th, 2024.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Councilmember Cotter and a second by Councilmember Turner. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that is approved. Then we move on to the special recognition of our Murray City Employee of the Month, Don Patty, police officer, presented by Mayor Brett Hells and myself and Craig Burnett.
Welcome, I'm Brett Hales. I did that because Don, it's sad when you have a bad eyesight without reading glasses. I saw Don, we had the policeman, I was gonna say ball, it's not a ball. What is it, Craig?
Or dinner or awards.
Okay, our dinner. And we were out there and I must have passed Don 3 times. I go, hi, I'm Brett Hales. And about the 3rd time I thought, God, he thinks I've got Alzheimer's. I do, but I remembered it. But anyway, this is a privilege for us to be here tonight. And I don't even have that in my, how many years have you been here, Don? 2.5 years. Well, you've been here 2.5 years. You made a great impression here, and we appreciate you. You've been involved, and we just think very highly of you, and so does Craig. He might not ever tell you, but I'll tell you for you. I know he does. I'm kidding. But anyway, we appreciate you, and this is an honor for us to be able to recognize you as the Employee of the Month. And I'll turn the time over to council member. That's so funny to say that. Hawk.
So I'll just point out what Craig wrote about Officer Patty, that he was, he received national feedback for how he interacted with the public on an incident that was recorded and published on websites. So we're really proud of you. Thank you for your hard work and how you have done this. So we have this certificate for you, as well as a gift card. So, Commissioner Burnett.
Yeah, this is it's a privilege to recognize Don. We thought of someone that we could recognize. There's plenty of people deserving, but this time we picked Don, and they talked about this audit where these folks went with cameras, and they go to usually government places and try to get responses. And the way that Don interacted with them, and their videos went, they then posted up on the internet. We were receiving emails from around, not just the country, but around the world, talking about how he handled it, how it was done, probably one of the best that they've had seen as far as how they interacted. So he's very good at diffusing and talking with people and getting his point across in his in his demeanor. The other thing that stands out, Don's only been here 2.5, almost 3 years. He's one of our field training officers. He's on the SWAT team. He just recently became a motor officer. So, you might get a ticket from him. I'm sorry. You probably might deserve it. So he's done a lot to be involved. But about a year and a half ago, he approached me with a concern that he had. A lot of the agencies in the valley had started paying new hires for their time in corrections. We were not one of those agencies. He brought that to my attention. We were able to go in there, change the policies, which we now give correctional officers more credit than they were getting before as far as pay when we hire them. And it also, by doing that, we went and back paid, or some of the, I shouldn't say back pay, but we put other officers up to a higher, another step or two, depending on their time of service. The thing is, it didn't benefit Don at all. He was concerned more about his coworkers than he was about himself. So, he's a good man to have with us. So, well deserved. Congratulations.
Mayor, appreciate it. Good to meet you again. And if you give me a ticket, I'll just say, hi, I'm Brett Hales.
Oh, yeah.
Plenty to say thank you to be here. I think this is a small testament for how far we made it this far in this career. It wasn't easy to get to this point, especially make it this far. So everybody's story is right. It's a hard route, and that's what there's a testament. So a lot of people to say thank you. I want to thank God, because without His grace and His blessing in my life and my family, I wouldn't be here today. Second, my family, my parents, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law. Thank you guys for, especially my parents. Thank you guys for believing in your dreams and what you guys had planned to bring us here in the U.S. For us to have this kind of opportunity. At the time, in 2004, at 14 years old, I didn't see the future. I just saw wanting to go back home, because we wanted to go back home. We didn't know any English, for me at the time. So thank you guys for believing in that. When different opportunity provided, you guys were always advising us, like, this is why we came in the U.S., is for you to make it. So for all my success, I credit my parents, because they're the one that was always advising me, and make sure, especially my dad, if you want to become a police officer, make sure you stay out of trouble. So thank you, Mom and Dad. To my brothers and sisters, thank you guys for always believing in me and being there for me. And my kids, I love you guys. And then last but not least, my wife. Thank you, Trace. Man, without her, I wouldn't be here today. Without her, Don Patti wouldn't be known around in the world for rugby. My wife worked full-time while I trained 3 times a day to make it through rugby. And when I decided to come into law enforcement, I put myself through the academy after I failed my first academy. And I was like, Trace, I just want to get my SFO so I can work at the county, Salt Lake County Jail, or not jail, the PSP section. She was like, no, you need to go get your LEO just in case down the road. So without her, I wouldn't make it this far here, or let alone be standing here and being a police officer and in this position. So thank you for you believing in me. Thank you for your love and your example and everything. I love you. And then last but not least, Chief, thank you. I should say thank you to our city council as well. Thank you guys for supporting us. I know a lot of cities don't support their police department. Thank you guys for supporting not only the police, but our department. And Mayor, thank you. As always, it's always good to meet you every time I see you. And then Chief, thank you. When I started here, there are 3 things that will stick with me for the rest of my career. And when I ask you what your goal is for the department, and you said, number 1 goal is for me in my department is I want my guys to go home safely every day. And then you said number two is, it's not about the citation or the arrest for me. It's about the relationship that my officers build with the community. When you said those two things to me, that's what sold my heart to be here today, or to be in this department. Because I was set to go to West Jordan. I'm like, I'm going to West Jordan. That's where I'm going when you said those things. And then the third thing is, you told me that, you know, Don, if you just show up every day and do your best, that's all I ask for. So I hope this is a little token of my best. Thank you, Chief. To all the lieutenants and sergeants, everybody that's made an impact, Sergeant Smith, Sergeant Christiansen that's not here today. Thank you guys. Thank you for your support, your leadership and example for me to make it this far. And then, of course, all my colleagues, my brothers and sisters that I work with every day, thank you guys. Without you guys, I wouldn't be the officer that I am and the man that I am. So thank you all. I love you guys. I love you guys. Thank you for coming tonight. God bless.
Thank you. That was really cool.
Adam, let me ask a question. Have you guys seen the video of Dawn? If you haven't, we'll send it to you.
Yeah.
It's
Please do.
just this group that comes and tries to antagonize you, and I was so nervous watching it, and he was a pro. So it was neat to see how he handled it, so we'll
That's
send it to you.
awesome. That's great. Yes, please. Yeah, please send that to us. And then, yeah, you do not have to stay unless you really like to watch city council meetings, so feel free to leave if you'd like. We'll now move to the citizen comments of our meeting. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Please step to the microphone here, state your name and city of residence, and fill out the required form that Patty has right there.
Carl Jurek, City of Murray. Ms. Turner, you're my representative as District 4. The reason I'm here tonight is I'd like to talk about two things. First, thank you to the City of Murray for doing the little things, such as sending the street sweepers through and cleaning up the leaves and making sure the sewers are clear and the snow removal. Thank you. And those are little things, but they make such a difference, and I've lived in other places that they're not done. So thank you very much. The second item is safety concerning 5290 South. Goes through from 9th East to 13th East and bypasses Twin Peaks Elementary School. My issue is that since the school has closed down, the speed on 5290 and Revere Drive has been getting higher and higher. And I would like to propose that we have something done about that. I'd like to have 4 speed bumps put in, 2 on Revere and 2 on 5290, and try to force those speeders off to 5600 and Van Winkle, where that kind of traffic should be. They're using it as a bypass. And just the other week when I was walking my dogs, some young gentleman who has a very heavy foot was going at least 50 through there and was on the wrong side of the road because of how fast he was going. I know this is a long process and will need to be looked at and reviewed, but if we can get it started, I'd be greatly appreciative. And the other item is making a right onto 5290 off of 9th East while heading north. If there's a house there and there's a bunch of garbage plants and whatnot, we could put in a turn lane there, and I know that's probably gonna require state funding and state review and be many years down the road. But I think that would be very helpful as well, because you have the cars speeding down 9th East behind you and you're trying to make that right, and there's just no room to really make that turn. So those are my issues, and if you want a full briefing, I can create you one, whatnot, but I'm just a citizen of the city who's noticed these things, and I think we need to have these changes put in place. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lawrence Horman, and as for my addresses, I usually say I live where I stand. I'm here to advocate for the homeless and their needs. And the thing that I've said for the past few times that I've been here that seems to be the thing stuck in my mind to say again is that I encourage Murray City to put together the best thing I can phrase it to identify it as a homeless community center. And I realized over the past few weeks that Murray already has some experience in this. They have a senior community center, which provides many of the needs for the seniors in the community. And a homeless community center in this area, in this part of the valley, would provide a need that is central to the valley so that those who are homeless and in need of the services could come there. Whether it was for a place for warming and cooling, whether it was some temporary overnight shelter, whether it was for some minor medical needs, and maybe even the inclusion of a free veterinary clinic for those who have animals that need some help and some treatment or to be seen after for some reason. I would encourage something like this to be here in Murray. Our community is generous, and this is something that we could do that would help. And we could maybe ask for other cities in the valley to help contribute to make it so that it's something that everybody could use. This is a suggestion that I think that we can accomplish by using any number of buildings that already exist for it that would work and do the job. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Clark Bullen, District 3. I actually just got back from a road trip, so I might look a little mangy. And I'm listening, I'm like, I can make it in time for citizen comment. Earlier I was listening as I drove, makes a good listen, about form-based code and how we've been delayed on doing something downtown for a long time, a disconnect between what citizens want and what developers wanted and maybe what the city thought. But it does, my understanding that this will get us to where we need to go and this is the direction we need to go. And everyone maybe tried to articulate what it is they wanted to do. They might have cited some examples of cities that have done it. But it's nice to be able to put a name to the magic sauce that we need to actually get some momentum and start making some progress on historic downtown. Thank you.
All right, then I will close the public comment or the citizen comment section of this, and we'll move on to our business items. Our first business item today is to consider an ordinance amending section 3.10.410 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to the procurement code and prior approval of contract modifications. Brooke Smith is presenting.
Hello, thank you for having me today. 2 weeks ago, we talked in our committee of the whole about changing our city code about change orders. The goal of that change is to increase our efficiencies and eliminate bottleneck that causes unnecessary duplication and delays to the projects and services. The proposed change is to eliminate the word of lesser than, and then the or, and then add in the greater than. So the code rule would be anything less than 5,000 or 5% and less than $10,000 would go through the normal signature process. Anything above that 5% and over that $10,000 would go through the change order rule and go through procurement and finance again. And that is my presentation for you. Do you have any questions or concerns? If not, I'd like to recommend a change.
I have a question that I brought up when we discussed as a council of the whole, but I wanted to go on record with this.
Sure.
Is how are we going to make sure that contractors don't abuse this through change orders?
It's a great question, and We're fortunate enough to have contractors that I think, well, I can't guarantee contractors won't. What I can guarantee is the procedures we have behind, in the back end out of administrative procedures, where we have audits that we conduct through the purchasing department, those will be done still, so we'll be able to still flag any foul play. I do believe our contractors want to keep that good reputation, and anything that puts that red flag on them is going to be detrimental to their business, so I hope that they will stay within the laws and obey those laws, but we're constantly overviewing and searching that on the administrative side of work.
Thank you.
Okay, no other comments?
No, she covered it, you covered it quite
Okay.
extensively.
Thank
The
you.
Committee of the Whole. Thank you.
Great, then I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve revising Murray Code 3.10.410 regarding the change order threshold.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Pickett and a second by Councilmember Turner.
I'll call a roll.
Brooke,
okay?
you can call a roll from there.
Mr. Pickett,
Aye.
Ms. Cotter,
Aye.
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Hawk.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, then we'll move to our second matter of business, is to consider a resolution approving an interlocal cooperation agreement between Murray City and Salt Lake County related to the Salt Lake City CDBG Urban County Program. Doug Hill presenting.
Thank you. As you are aware, and as we discussed previously, all cities in the United States receive funds from the federal government through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, called Community Development Block Grant Funds. And these funds are intended to benefit low to moderate income individuals or families or areas. Murray City has just recently elected to join up with the Salt Lake County Urban County Program to administer these funds. So we just entered into a 3-year agreement with the county, basically giving the funds that Murray City would receive to Salt Lake County to administer. This agreement that's before you tonight is a follow-up agreement to the previous agreement, whereby Murray City, should we choose to want to keep those funds and use them on any project in Murray City, we would be allowed to do that by notifying the county in advance that we have a project, we would like to retain the funds ourselves, and then the county, we would then work with the county to meet the requirements that the federal government sets forth to spend these funds to make sure they benefit low to moderate income areas. So that's really what you're considering tonight, is just the approval of this interlocal agreement with Salt Lake County. Any questions?
Yeah, it says the budget impact is revenue of approximately $140,000.
Yeah, so that's the amount of money had Murray City elected to take the funds this year. That's the amount of money that Murray City would have received. Those funds can change every year depending upon appropriation by Congress. So it's an approximate amount, but it's going to be in that neighborhood of $140,000.
Thank you.
No other comments? Then I'll entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to adopt the resolution approving an interlocal cooperation agreement between the city and Salt Lake County to reimburse the city for certain costs incurred by the city to complete installation of buffered bike lanes. Oh no, I'm on the wrong one, I'm sorry. Let's start again.
I don't want to go to.
I don't.
Thrown off.
Oh my goodness, I know you're wondering what in the heck. All right, let's start again. I will make a motion to adopt a resolution approving an interlocal cooperation agreement between Murray City and Salt Lake County relating to the Salt Lake CDBG Urban County Program.
All right, I have a motion from Councilmember Turner. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Turner and a second by Councilmember Cotter. Brooke, will you call the roll?
Mr. Pickett?
Aye.
Ms. Cotter?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Hawk?
Aye. All right, we'll move on to the third item, which is to consider a resolution approving an interlocal cooperation agreement between the city and Salt Lake County to reimburse the city for certain costs incurred by the city to complete installation of buffered bike lanes and additional transportation improvements on Vine Street. Trey Stokes and Chris Zolizlik
Say that again.
presenting.
No, hey, Trey's not gonna be here tonight, so, I just wanted to, Chris Wislak, he's one of our engineers for the city. But he actually went after this money, and was able to obtain it, so he wrote it, and, he knows more about it than anybody, me or Trey, so I'm gonna have him present it.
Thanks, Russ. Okay, Don, you got halfway there. We'll have you finish the rest. So we're here to present a resolution for you for your approval for $300,000. In 2018, the Utah legislature allowed participating counties to have a 1% sales tax increase devoted to transportation dollars. This is the fourth quarter portion that Salt Lake County divides out through all the municipalities in our county for active transportation related projects. We had on the books our Vine Street rehabilitation. We're gonna mill and pave it from State Street to 9th East this year. Last year, they were soliciting grants. We applied for $300,000. Salt Lake County Council has approved $300,000 for the project we already had on the books off this fourth quarter sales tax, and we're here to just ask for your approval so we can get it signed and move forward with it.
Can I say something real quick? Chris, thank you. He worked hard to get this $300,000. And we talk about grant writers all the time. Russ and I have talked about this, and no one can grant write, in my opinion, any better than department heads or their people. And they know sometimes I'll see something and Russ in particular will say, yeah, we don't want that one. It obligates us in certain areas. And so they know when and when not to, and they always go after the funds. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Brett.
Yeah, thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's great. I'll say improving our bike lanes is much needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a bike rider, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, hopefully it goes to good use.
All right, shall I try it again? I was so excited, and to have you
got
here,
it.
Chris, oh my goodness. We don't get that privilege very often, so I will try it again. I will make a motion to adopt the resolution approving an interlocal cooperation agreement between the city and Salt Lake County to reimburse the city for certain costs incurred by the city to complete installation of buffered bike lanes and additional transportation.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Councilmember Turner and a second by Councilmember Pickett. Brooke, you want to call the roll?
Mr. Pickett?
Aye.
Ms. Cotter?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Hawk?
Aye. All right, our last item is to consider resolution amending the Murray City Council policies. I'll slow down and procedures. Jennifer Kennedy is presenting.
Hello. So, as you know, we talked about this in the last committee of the whole. When we talked about it, there were a couple of things that I had added that I have since taken out, and we can work on those changes later. This item is simply a combination of your current council rules and your current council handbook, so we can put everything together into one document. That's all this is, and then we can work on any changes or additions further down the road.
Could you speak into the mic? I'm the
sorry.
hard of hearing person here in the council. Thank
So-
you. Sorry. I just couldn't hear.
So what I was saying, this is just taking your council rules and your council handbook and combining them into one document. The changes I had proposed, there was a couple of them during the committee of the whole. I've taken all that stuff out, and we can bring those forward at another time if you guys want to do that, or any changes we can make other than that. This will just put everything together so everything's in one document for you guys.
So none of the changes that we've suggested over the last 2 weeks are in here now?
No, this is simply combining
Okay.
the two documents.
Cool.
I think it's great that you did this, so
Thank
we
you.
appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
Because then my binder won't look like this.
That's correct. We will get new binders.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Nope.
Then I will entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion to the resolution amending the Murray City Council policy and procedure.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Cotter and a second by Councilmember Turner. Brooke, will you call the roll?
Mr. Pickett?
Aye.
Ms. Cotter?
Aye.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Hawk?
Aye. All right, then we'll move on to the mayor's report. And
Okay, the only thing I have is, and I brought it up with the committee of the whole because we had a group from the fire department there. But I just wanted to compliment our fire department, police department, public works, power department, probably many more, with the fire that took place at the old Wagon Master across from the cemetery about 2 weeks ago. I have never witnessed anything like it in my life. I was able to go right there and witness watching them put the fire out. And it was just impressive to watch all the employees work together and Joey, our fire department chief, to head that up. It was just impressive to watch the unity that they all had and the way they handled that fire. I received a text from the owner that made a comment that how much he appreciated Joey and that his biggest concern was that no one was hurt. And thank God, no one was hurt. And but just watching, listening to Joey a little bit during that, I didn't even think of certain things and they had to make sure no one was in there. And that's a risk to them also to make sure that that's safe or that there was no one hurt. And so I just want to give all those involved, which was a lot of our departments, a big thanks and the way they handled that. And it was just impressive for me to watch that. And I knew we had great employees, but it's just a confirmation when I watched that. So a big shout out to them and a big thanks for me. That's it.
any questions for the mayor? Then we are adjourned.